limiting the bills in Tallahassee. We don't want to hear all the bad news, just the bad news that affects us the most. So he's going to talk about a little bit about Negron's plan and some other issues. And
good afternoon.
Hi.
Can you all hear me if I use this? That sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you for that introduction, Donna. My name is Thomas Hawkins. I did drive here from Gainesville this morning. I told Donna that she called me a Florida cracker because I told her my family moved here in the 1850s. We've been in Gainesville ever since, although now I'm working in Tallahassee. My only exposure to Tallahassee before was my grandmother went to FSU and it was still a women's college. And her father actually had been in the Florida legislature before that, but that was long before I was around. I'm really proud to work for Thousand Friends of Florida. I've been with Thousand Friends for just about a year now. My background is, before joining Thousand Friends, I was a private sector land use attorney, and also served in the Gainesville City Commission for 6 years. We have 3-year terms up there and a 2-term limit. So I did a term there, and I'm really impressed with the speakers that you guys have had today. I teach at the Florida Law School, at U.S. Law School, a class in land use law. And one of the topics that we cover is impact fees. And I cannot explain the dual rational nexus test as well as our first speaker. So I'm really impressed. You guys are getting first-class information. Thank you. It was phenomenal. First-class information. And I really also love presenting environmental perspectives from a fiscally conservative perspective as well. At least in Alachua County, so many of the environmentalists are leftists. They forget that that is also a very correct and powerful argument. So anyway, but I'm here to talk about the legislative session. Is that working? No, there we go. The first thing I want to cover is Senate Bill 10. It has been changing a whole lot, and my colleague Ryan Smart, who was here last year, is actually the leader at Thousand Friends in working on this bill. I focus more on our land use and transportation related bills. So I hope I do its complexity justice. And I've committed a PowerPoint faux pas here. All of my slides have lots and lots of text on them. I promise you I won't read them. Probably the first most exciting thing that's happened in regard to Senate Bill 10 this week is it came out of the Senate last week. The Senate approved it, and then this week Rick Scott endorsed a lot of its components. The governor, in his endorsement, also endorsed some ideas that are not in Senate Bill 10, and it might not be mutually achievable. He essentially said, we're going to not impact agriculture, but build reservoirs south of the lake, and increase the height of the Herbert Beaver Dike to have more storage in Lake Okeechobee. I don't know that all of them are achievable, but he did guarantee to touch on everything that everybody wanted to hear. We've got, we do have a bill. It's been adopted by the Senate. Essentially what it does is instead of calling for purchase of new land to construct a reservoir south of the lake, it calls for using land that's currently in agricultural production but is owned by the state of Florida, and it's in ag under lease terms to be converted to water storage. And that project is about 240,000 acre-feet of water. It also calls for accelerating the C51 reservoir project, which is a reservoir not for sending water to the Everglades, but south of the lake in Palm Beach County. The House has not yet come to an agreement on a bill for its version of Senate Bill 10. We are going to need to have a bill in both houses that's the same in order to have something passed, and the House is not there yet. But there does seem to be some optimism that we can get to an agreement in terms. We at Thousand Friends of Florida are really supportive of the end goal of Senate Bill 10, but we've had some concerns throughout the entire process of how the approach to Senate Bill 10 affects conservation funding in other areas. And specifically, that one of the changes that's coming with Senate Bill 10 is using Florida Forever funds for water supply projects. This font's too small, but on this diagram on the right-hand side, what you're essentially seeing is how we've been spending monies in the Land Acquisition Trust Fund since adoption of the amendment in 2014 directing the state legislature to spend at least a third of dock stamp tax revenue on land conservation and water conservation projects. And the bottom line of it is we're not spending the money on Florida Forever. Even though we have a clear intent of the will of the voters saying we want some of the stop stamp tax revenue to go towards land conservation, it hasn't been happening. Essentially what the legislature did is it moved a lot of its recurring environmental programs like STAF, the DEP, and other things out of being funded by the general fund and into being funded by the Land Acquisition Trust Fund. Unfortunately, one of the things that's coming out of Senate Bill 10 is further using the Florida money that could be for land acquisition in Florida Forever now being used for water supply projects. We'll see how that turns out after the House also spends some time with it. The next bill I want to talk about is Senate Bill 234, which was filed by Bradley. That is not how you spell his name, that's a typo. Who is a senator, is actually my senator, he's in North Florida, who filed this bill, Senate Bill 234, to direct Florida Forever funds towards conservation in the St. Johns River watershed. And there was an amendment filed to that by Linda Stewart, Senator Linda Stewart, we were very strongly in support of. It would have asked for 1/4 of the money in the Land Acquisition Trust Fund to go towards Florida Forever. Unfortunately, that amendment did not have support, and Senator Stewart ultimately withdrew that amendment. So we're still in the same place we are without the money that we think should be going towards Amendment 1, to Amendment 1. There's more information on Amendment 1. I'm going to go into some other conservation bills now. One is disposal of plastic bags. I would place almost all of the bills that we're talking about right now in kind of a yellow-light category. We've just got 2 weeks left in the legislative session, and so right now things that haven't already gotten a very long way, probably not optimistic that they're going to become law. So if I touch on anything that's a dead bill but worth mentioning anyway, I'll let you know. And if I touch on anything that we think is going to still happen in this legislative session, I'll let you know. But for the most part, most of the bills that I'll go through are interesting things that we've been watching, but that now don't necessarily have a lot of inertia. So this one is a plastic bag ban bill that would allow communities to set up pilot programs to ban plastic bags. Very significant if you're concerned not just about litter generally, but about sea life. This next one is a bill affecting the Environmental Regulation Commission, which would require the governor to fill vacancies on the ERC. The ERC has suffered from vacancies, from not being fully staffed. The anti-fracking bill is another bill we've been watching closely this legislative session. We were very optimistic at the beginning of the session that we were going to see adoption of an anti-fracking bill. It hasn't happened, although it's done relatively well in the Senate. It has not in the, although it has not moved at all in the House, it did relatively well in the Senate to start, but is now currently stopped in committee, and the committee chair is not giving a hearing over disagreements between the two chambers of the bill. Unfortunately, very discouraging. Public notification of pollution. This is a law change that would require folks who pollute to provide notice to the public and DEP of certain violations. It had unanimous support in the Senate, but is not moving in the House. In growth management, which is very close to my heart, we're going to touch on some bills that affect comprehensive plans and comprehensive planning. First, before we get there, Senator Lee, who's the chair of the Community Affairs Committee, supported a bill that would close a loophole in state law that allows independent special districts to convert themselves into cities. Does anybody know what an independent special district is? Somebody ever, I know our elected officials do, Commissioner Croton. Has anybody ever heard of a community development district? I see maybe about 5% of the audience has their hands up. The independent special district is an entity that's created in order to collect taxes and fees to provide infrastructure. They're typically created by the private sector. There are special districts created by the public sector, but these are very often things created by a large-scale developer to help build infrastructure for a new development. They can levy taxes and fees. The only independent special district that's ever taken advantage of this provision in law is a project called Westlake, or Minto in Palm Beach County, which decided after getting its development approvals from the county and having only 5 people living on its many thousand-acre property, that it could accomplish more with less bureaucracy if it decided it was a city. And it elected under state law to just declare itself a new town. And this bill will close that loophole. This is the first of two growth management bills filed by Senator Perry. Senator Perry, and I actually misspoke earlier when I described Senator Bradley as my senator. He used to be. Now Senator Perry is after redistricting. This bill, 940, does something very interesting. It creates a requirement that local governments adopt pro-economic development policies in the comprehensive plan. Now, there's already a lot of requirements under state law that comprehensive plans reflect positively on economic development, and we think it's a good thing, right? We want to have strong economies. What's interesting about this bill, and a reason that 1,000 Friends of Florida opposes it, is it tells local governments that they have to constantly be balancing economic development against all the other policies in the comprehensive plan, and if they conflict, they should ignore everything except for the economic development and property rights policy. That doesn't make a lot of sense. We think all these policies need to be read in balance and in a way that they make sense together, not that some trump others and there's winners and losers, with the winners being private sector over what affects all of us in the public sector. More on Senate Bill 940. The second of these two growth management bills, dealing with comprehensive planning, is Senate Bill 996. Senate Bill 996 is thankfully dead for this legislative session. It would have created a new cause of action under Florida law that would allow permit applicants to sue members of the public. Somebody mentioned slap suits earlier.
Jackie.
Yeah. To recover attorney's fees if you challenge a permit approval in an administrative hearing. I use a lot of sort of complicated language there. The bottom line is, if you challenge a local government's comprehensive planning decision as a citizen, the developer who asked for that comp plan change can now sue you for attorney's fees under a brand new standard that doesn't normally exist for attorney fees cases. Normally in attorney's fees cases, you can only recover attorney's fees if somebody had no basis in law or fact for the argument they were making. Right? So if somebody brings a lawsuit they really shouldn't have, or for a malicious intent, you can get attorney's fees. This bill would allow folks to get attorney's fees any time that a judge decided the environmentalist or community organization's argument wasn't substantially justified. That term wasn't defined in statute, however.
And this is progressing.
It is not progressing. It is dead for this year. Senator Perry has said that he will bring it back in the future. So we will be continuing to watch this and continue to communicate with him and his constituents. I think this is a very important issue. A lot of what we do at 1,000 Friends of Florida, in addition to providing technical support to community organizations, is when it gets to that point, we file lawsuits. And it's something we don't like that to be our first strategy. It isn't our first strategy, but it's an option. It's there and it needs to be. This bill would make that much harder. Linear facilities, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. It would change how the state, it would preempt to the state certain regulations on gas pipelines and electrical transmission facilities. This is a massive bill. House Bill 17 would preempt to the state of Florida all local government business regulation. It would affect everything from how local governments have specialized environmental regulations, to noise ordinances, to identifying nuisances, you name it. This bill is the daddy of all preemption bills. It would essentially, if this passed, it would say, if you've got a quality of life concern in your community that could be defined by anybody to be a business regulation, you have to go to Tallahassee to ask for it. You can no longer go to your county seat or to your city hall. And we very strongly oppose this. This is a little bit of difference. There's a House and a Senate bill, and this is some differences between the two. The Senate bill actually has some really fascinating, from a land use attorney's perspective, fascinating stuff in it. But I don't think the details necessarily worth going into. Community development agencies. Most of the downtown areas in Florida that have seen a lot of redevelopment and exciting things happen in recent decades have happened because of community redevelopment agencies. These are organizations that, after a local government has identified an area of blight, they bring in a CRA to rehabilitate it. They collect tax revenue just from the area that's determined to be blighted. And there's a House and a Senate bill that would curtail the use of CRAs. In one case, they've actually been amended to the point where they're both pretty similar, and what they would essentially do is require supermajority votes to continue CRAs, and then limit the scope of the kinds of projects CRAs can do. So they can't do a lot of the things they currently do today, like build parks, put in sidewalks, upgrade utilities for stormwater, et cetera.
Is that like?
I have two questions. You first and then I'll come in front.
Do you support that?
But we do not support that. We oppose this bill because it limits CRAs. We like community redevelopment areas. We want Florida communities to be great places to live. We think CRAs are an important tool for accomplishing that. So we oppose bills that limit the scope of what they can do. These two bills in particular.
Is it likely to pass?
I don't know. They're both. The question is, are the bills likely to pass? They're both moving through the process. They both the Senate and House bill passed committees this past week. So they're moving. I can't read the tea leaves. This is my first legislative session. I really have no idea what's going to pass and what's not. But this one is, as of last week, was still moving forward. Transportation. I'm just going to touch this high-speed passenger rail one. I'm going to skip the other transportation bill that I had. Y'all are familiar, I'm sure, with All Aboard Florida. There was a push by lots of folks in this area to ensure that All Aboard Florida paid for its own upgrades for safety, and we support that. We support high-speed passenger rail, but like everything else, we think it needs to pay its own way. This bill would have required high-speed passenger rail to pay for a lot of the local impacts that are now being put off on local government. We supported this bill. It does not look like it's going anywhere this legislative session. It's been temporarily postponed, both in the House and the Senate. So it looks like it is dead for the year. And finally, I want to conclude with some ideas on citizen advocacy. Senate Bill 996, the one that I described, is really bad for the kind of work that we do that died because 1,000 Friends of Florida members advocated against it. Contacting your legislators works. Some strategy, y'all heard great things about strategies here from the previous speakers. Know your stuff, communicate politely, but with command of the facts, and you can have a tremendous influence. Some resources, our website, 1000fof.org, is a great resource to know what bills you're tracking. The House and the Senate websites are also great for resources on bills. I'm really impressed with the work that legislative staff does. The bills don't make any darn sense. But if you read the staff reports, they lay it out, they're objective, they give good information, and I very rarely can imagine ways that I would improve upon them. Even as a subject matter expert in some of the areas, not less of the environmental stuff, more than the land use stuff. Another great source for information in the legislative session is the Florida Conservation Coalition. How many folks subscribe to the Florida Conservation Coalition email listserv? About a quarter of the room, maybe a little less. I would encourage y'all to sign up for the FCC email blasts. It's a couple of times a week, a digest of all the environmental news in the state. It's one of the best resources that comes into my inbox on a regular basis. And they also have a lot of good information in the legislative session. And that's it. I think. Yeah? Yes, ma'am.
I'll stand up.
Here until Don gets to the vote.
I know this is complicated to go into, but so do you happen to know, because I know this doesn't sound like this is your main thing. So the Senate Bill 10, you quoted 240,000 acre-feet of water would be in this new deep-end reservoir. So do you understand the difference between, I just don't remember the acre-feet from the initial proposed reservoir on 60,000 acre. Does anybody know that? Because I'm trying to really get, I'm trying to wrap my mind around this to really get it.
There were 360,000 acre feet in
It
the
was,
original.
wasn't it? Okay.
60,000 acre feet, whether by sleight of hand or by agreement, I don't know on this one, is being looked at in terms of one of the SEP reservoirs they're building in C-15. So they have not dramatically reduced the amount. The feeling I'm getting from those folks who are very concerned about it is, yes, they need to buy land. They will need to buy a lot of land. They can't use the A1 and A2 reservoirs. But the 240 is not scary.
Okay.
They believe that can be paid.
Clarify from your end, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You can't use A1 and A2 and convert them into deeper water, overflow, the new content. Sorry, I'm not being articulate on that. Why can't you do it?
A1 and A2 are part of the system to clean the water body. They are called, just to wrap your mind around more confusing things, FEDs, flow equalization
Yeah,
basins.
and that's what we want.
They're 4 feet deep, they're deeper than an STA, but they get a fair amount of water quality treatment. The plan after the Central Everglades plan was complete was to take the flow equalization basins, lower the water in them, and make them into STAs. That way you would have adequate stormwater treatment capacity to treat Sugar's runoff and to treat Lake Okeechobee water that you were sending south in the normal kind of flow it should go. And one of the things that's really important to remember about this system, it's not a static system. It's not a system where you build a big reservoir south of the lake, and then whenever the lake gets full, you dump all the water into the reservoir. That's not how it works. Think rather that every time it doesn't rain, you have to pump water from the lake into Sugar, and you have to save the water up to here in Lake Okeechobee until June. And then in June, if they don't use it, you have to dump it on us. And you have to dump it so fast that you can't treat it. Instead, pump dirty water from the sugarcane fields into the reservoir. Pump it back on the fields. Don't treat it. Open up STA capacity. Reduce the amount of water you need from Lake Okeechobee. Then you have stormwater treatment capacity and reservoir flow basins, if you will, deep flow basins, that will be able to channel water throughout the rainy season and the dry season down that Place National Park that's needed and have it clean. And I'll be glad to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Yes, in the back?
Do we know that our state representatives are working for the House version of Senate Bill 10 to get that passed? Do we know that Marilyn Maker, Gail Harrell, and Larry Lee, I think it is, that they're all working for that?
I do not know.
Could you find out for us?
I can.
Maybe that's what we saw here, so we're calling.
Any other questions before I give the floor back to Don? Yes, sir?
You had that good slide up that showed the appropriation, or in my opinion, misappropriation of Amendment 1 monies by the legislature. Wasn't there a lawsuit, and I'm not sure if it was you guys or the Florida Wildlife Federation, somebody filed suit against them for that misappropriation. Can you give us any update on that?
Yes, I can. I was actually the executive director of Florida Defenders of the Environment when we filed that lawsuit by Sierra Club, the St. Johns River Riverkeeper, and possibly the Florida Wildlife Federation, but I'm not sure if FWF was a party also. Those two separate cases have been consolidated, and there is a provision in law that automatically stays any court proceedings to which the legislature is a party during the legislative session. So those were consolidated, I think, late last year, and now they're in abeyance during the session. They'll pick back up again this summer. I don't know how long they'll take. The theory of Florida Defenders of the Environment's case, I won't get into the theory. The requested relief is essentially a declaration by the court that the misappropriation I showed in that slide violates the Constitution, which I think does as a citizen of the state without regard to my interest in any environmental organizations involved. And once that declaration is made, an injunction prohibiting the legislature from similarly misappropriating the funds in the future. It doesn't look backward to fix the error in the past. That's just unfortunately every budget that gets adopted, the money that's misappropriated is gone. You can't go back and take it. You can't take the salaries back from DEP. Even if we could, I'm not sure that would be a good thing to advocate for. But so hopefully we'll get a resolution on that.
I realize we're in an anti-regulation environment, for lack of a better term. Is there any consideration of trying to address the water from the north that's going into the lake? Is there any force that's trying to apply something to the agricultural interests north of the lake that have been allowed to serve the lake so badly?
Yeah, there is, and in fact, a lot of the communication strategy on Senate Bill 10 is folks who say, well, we shouldn't be building a reservoir south of the lake. We would get more water cleaning capacity if we built it north of the lake. And they sort of omit from the conversation the fact that it doesn't do anything to help rehydrate Everglades National Park. So that conversation is happening. I apologize. I'm not
In
able to tell you
legislation?
exactly where it is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.